Hello, lovely strangers, and welcome to another How Would I Judge a Drag Race season video. Today we're going to be going over RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8. I got a brand new funky little pop filter on my mic, so we'll see if that makes the audio quality better. And we're just going to have a good old time here talking about the season of All Stars, which was, it was a season of All Stars. We can call it that. It was. It certainly was. But hopefully, the way that I would probably choose to judge this season would make this season a better experience. Hopefully. It is for me, I would say. For you, questionable. We'll find that out together. The rules to remember, as always, are the season has to be as long as season 8 of Drag Race All Stars originally was, which was 12 episodes, and the performances and the challenges need to be based off of how well someone did or how people would predict they would do. Now, this rule that I have for every single one of these videos of it having to be the same length of a season doesn't actually mean that they have to be the same kind of episodes. Before we get into it, I'll just talk about this. I really did not enjoy the getting down to the top 2 situation that happened this season. It just didn't work for me. It felt like we were just waiting to get to the end at points, just like waiting and waiting, and then it became less interesting almost, because you would think it'd be more interesting of just having 2 options and like seeing who people would prefer, especially when they've never had that before. But in this situation, it really just actually kind of cut the tension. Whereas if somebody like Jessica Wilde was in that finale, I feel like it would have been way more interesting. So the way that the season is actually going to be formatted is there are going to be 9 competitive episodes. Then we're going to have our talent show situation that happened the same way it did originally on the season. Then we'll have the finale, and then after the finale, we're gonna have a reunion, a la like All Stars 2, like kind of format. The second rule about performances and challenges, as always, I'm not just gonna put somebody in the top when they were in the bottom and vice versa, unless there is major fan support for that being the case. The example I use is Electra Shock in the Girl Groups Challenge on Drag Race Down Under Season 1. She was in the bottom 2, but most people think she should have been at least high for that challenge, I would say. So not going to do it unless everybody would say that I should. The goal is to act as if I'm the head judge and craft the season however can imagine to make it as fun and eventful as possible, while also being fair with my judging of the season by combining my own personal taste and what was shown to us on the show. There's always going to be something that is, purely subjective and taste related. Well, not purely, but mostly, like a ball, a design challenge, for example. But, we'll cross those bridges when we get to them. So, episode 1, we are having ourselves the Girl Groups Challenge. And I guess I should also mention that for this season, we are going to be doing the top 2 All-Stars format, a la Drag Race All-Stars seasons 2 through 4, the Versus the Worlds, the format. So this episode, we are having the girl groups as we had originally. None of these challenges are going to be changing order or anything throughout the season. So for this challenge, Kahana Montrese was originally in the top. I think she should have stayed there. She did a great job in this. She really stood out as one of the main people to excel in this challenge, in my opinion. And I thought Lala Ree and Jessica Wilde also really stood out to me. Kahana originally did win the challenge and Lala Ree was high. Jessica was not, though. Originally, Alexis Michelle was high. And I would say that Alexis Michelle was in the top half of competitors. I would say that for sure. But I do think, looking at everybody, those are my standouts: Kahana, Lala, and Jessica. And then in the bottoms, we have James Mansfield, Darian Lake, and Monica Beverly Hills. Originally, James Mansfield was also high and was just a bottom 2 of Darian and Monica. But, James missed some choreo, so, there's no way that she should have been in the top, I was this close to putting her in the bottom 2, but I decided against it because I felt like looking at the runways that happened in the episode, which were also, mentioned as, being a substantial, I would say there was a substantial part of the critiques for the episode, it seemed. It gave very much the season 12 and 13 and also season 7 premiere episodes where they have the runways there, and they actually it seems like those runways that happened earlier like mean more. I feel like they do at least. So taking those into consideration along with the challenge, while James did miss some choreo, she had an amazing verse. So I think looking at everything, James probably deserved to just keep it low, whereas Darian and Monica were my bottom two. Kahana Montrese and Lala Ree are going to lip sync to Freakum Dress by Beyonce. I think very reasonably either of them could have won this lip sync, but I decided to keep Kahana as the winner. She did an amazing job originally, and I don't know if Lala would necessarily go as hard as Kahana did. I definitely think she could, but would she? I don't know. I think her lip syncing in this like her lip syncing like can be very, kick, dip, da 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 da. It can be that. I feel like Lala though is gonna try to go more specifically for the true tone of the song, which I feel like absolutely like in some situations like you probably should be going for the tone of the song, but with the way that Kahana did it and really just going for it and doing all of the tricks, I think there was no way that you couldn't give Kahana the win in this situation, at least for me. So Kahana is going to win here, and she originally did choose Monica Beverly Hills' lipstick. So Miss Not a Soul Can Clock, Not a Soul Can Clock, is going to be going home here again in episode 1, and we're going to move on to episode 2. In episode 2, we have the RDR Live challenge. Now, this one was a hard fucking one to judge because realistically, basically anybody but the bottom two could have been in the top. No, not anybody, but most people that were in the bottom two could have been in the top. So many people did a great job in this challenge. And for that, I decided to actually do a top 4 and a bottom 2. I would never really do that. I mean, once in a while I do that, but I usually would not do that in like a regular Drag Race season because that's just not the precedent. It is almost always a top 3, bottom 3, and with an occasional exception. For All Stars, especially like in this top 2, bottom 2 format, tends to be much more variation. They are not afraid of giving 2 high placements and a bottom 3 in an episode if they feel like it. So because it's less of a precedent, I don't feel as bad doing it. So we are having a top 4 here. Originally, Jimbo won this challenge. I think Jimbo should have been in the top, absolutely. I loved her performance in this. I thought it was so funny. I really did. I got it immediately. The fact that she was able to play the quote like the comedy phrase like a straight man character while also playing this kind of like weed whacking I guess like quote unquote bimbo character was just, it was amazing. I was so impressed watching it. She totally deserved to be in the top for me, for sure. And I thought Heidi did an amazing job because she really had multiple parts in there that she kind of had to carry. I'd say she kind of had the most integral portion of this challenge, and she sold it the whole time. So I don't see why Heidi wouldn't be in the top for this challenge and winning it. I decided to put James Mansfield and Mrs. Kasha Davis in the high placements. I thought Kasha did an amazing job playing her character in the challenge. A lot of people say Kasha should have won. I just really don't see it. I just preferred Heidi's, Jimbo's, and James's characters over Kasha's. But Kasha, I mean, kills an acting challenge every time. She did great in this, and so did James. I mean, James, again, I think kills an acting challenge. Well, not every time. I guess we'll get to that later in like 2 episodes, but originally the bottom 2 were Kahana Montrese and Naysha Lopez, and this is going to stay that way. I do think they were the worst in the challenge. I really am not a fan of, the All-Stars, pattern of winning in episode 1 and being bottom episode 2, but this is one of those scenarios where I think it feels entirely warranted for that to be the case. I don't think Kahana did a bad job by any means, but in comparison to the rest of the field, it was, I would say, my second least favorite. So my top 2 are going to be Heidi in Closet and Jimbo. They are going to be lip syncing to She Bop by Cyndi Lauper. I think Heidi would win this one, just, based off of their lip sync track records, how good they are at lip syncing. I would just assume that Heidi would win this, but you know, I'm not gonna say that Jimbo couldn't win, but I feel like it's a fair assumption that Heidi would win this, so Heidi is gonna win it. And if you look at the original votes here, Heidi did vote to eliminate Naisha, so Naisha is again gonna leave here in episode 2, and we are gonna move on to episode 3. Now we're here at episode 3, which was the Supermarket Ball Challenge. Now, originally, Jessica Wilde won, and I completely agree. She did an amazing job in this challenge. I mean, I have no complaints about it. She excelled in this so hard for me. And Heidi was originally safe, but I moved her up to that top 2 because I mean, her outfits were amazing. I was shocked that she wasn't in the top for this challenge. Frankly, shocked. I mean, the strawberry outfit with the fucking pants, I mean, come on. That is like, I want that on my body right the fuck now. And the fact that that wasn't in the top is it honestly makes me angry. Is that like too much? Is that too much that I'm angry about that? I don't really care. Like I fucking love Heidi in Closet. I've mentioned this at some point on this channel, but Heidi in Closet is one of my favorite Drag Race queens of all time. Just like point blank period. Like top 5 for sure. I love my Miss Heidi, so I do have a slight bias towards her. I will not lie, but I do not think I'm that biased in saying that she was my second favorite of the night here. I think she did amazing. And Alexis Michelle, I thought was so good in this challenge. She was also safe originally. Originally, the high placements went to Lala, uh, Jimbo, and Candy, which like I don't really see. Like I think, like obviously I put Candy as low here. I mean, I guess looking at it, I would probably have Jimbo and Lala in some order in 4th and 5th in this challenge, probably. But I just didn't see the high placements for them. I just thought they kind of did fine. Like, not to be shady, but that's how I feel. And yeah, I did put Candy as low, and that's really just because she used the same silhouette for every outfit. And it's like, yeah, and it's like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like in a drag race design challenge, when you have 2 of the looks already made and they're both similar silhouettes, why would she not make a look with a different silhouette? That is the perfect opportunity to show something different, I feel like. But instead, you're showing something that's very much the same as the other 2 looks you made, and then you're just having, like, you know, it's like Bianca Del Rio in the same dress a bunch in the season. That's what it gives me, genuinely. It's like, okay, why why are we getting a similar silhouette between all these looks? It annoys me. And it kind of, even though the looks are all good in themselves, the fact that they're all similar silhouettes dampens the value of them to me. So I feel like she was the low this week. Perfect. I feel that strongly. Darian Lake and Mrs. Kasha Davis were the bottom 2 originally. They're still going to be the bottom 2. They sadly did the worst on this challenge. The top 2 of Jessica Wilde and Heidi in Closet are going to lip sync to Coconuts by Kim Petras. And Jessica has the reveal. I think Jessica really gets the vibe of the song, and I think she would do an amazing job with it still. I mean, she did originally. And I just don't think, based off of what we saw from Jessica's original performance and what we know that Heidi can do, that Heidi would beat her in this lip sync. So I think Jessica is still going to win here, and she did originally choose to eliminate Kasha, so she's still going to eliminate Mrs. Kasha Davis here. And I mean, I love Kasha. Everybody loves Kasha. Kasha is everything. So it's sad to see her go, but if it's what happens, it's what happens. They voted for her, so that's gotta be the way it's gotta be. The next challenge, we have the commercial acting challenge. This one was also just a hard fucking challenge to judge, in my opinion, because just purely based off of the acting performances, I feel like you have 5 people that could have been on the top, aka the 4 that I already have, and Jessica. Oh, and I also should mention, the safes are just listed by alphabetical order by their names. They're not actually tiered within the safes. It's just alphabetical. I just wanted to clarify that. But I do think realistically there are 5 potential top placements. Kahana, perfectly safe, and then the bottom 3. And so it's like, okay, that's a weird thing. You can't, no, I'm not going to do a top 5, a middle 1, and a bottom 3. That's crazy. But just based off of the actual, like, commercials themselves, the team in which all 3 of its members I feel like could have been in the top was just a bad commercial by its design. Because they did, like, the Jimbo's the third wheel, like, Candy and Jessica are, like, the popular girls, and Jimbo gets mad and she, like, kills them. And that's, like, their commercial for their television show. But why are you spoiling the ending of the show in your commercial? That's not how commercials work. So based off as an actual commercial, it's just not a good commercial. And the team who did the worst in terms of the actual acting, their commercial was, in terms of a commercial, the best one. Because they set up what the format is going to be, and they leave it open to interpretation how it's going to go. Which is what a commercial for a television show I feel like should do. So it's like, what the fuck? How do you judge this? So I just kind of purely went based off of the acting and what I feel comfortable giving people as placements, I would say. So I decided to do the 4-3 split of 4 tops and 3 bottoms and leave Jessica out of the tops. I just felt like out of everybody out of those 5, Jessica was the one that I just thought about the least when watching those commercials. Heidi and Jimbo were really the standouts of their commercials, and since they were the 2 best commercials, I thought it made sense to put them as the top 2 here. Then we have Candy and Lala being like the second best in their commercials, having the high placements, and then kind of like the third best having the safes. I felt like that was kind of the most fair way to put it, because those 2 commercials were similar levels of like quality in terms of the acting. So I thought that was probably the best way to go about it. Originally it was a bottom 3. I took Alexis Michelle out of the bottom 3 because I liked her performance the best. I found myself gravitating towards Alexis in the commercials. I really think this could have been a bottom 3, but I don't particularly like doing a bottom 3 personally. I feel much more comfortable doing like adding an extra person to like a top and adding them a high, more than doing like a bottom 3 situation. I just don't like it. So I decided to take Alexis out of it. It felt like the best decision in my heart. That's really the only way I can go about it. And then we have the bottom 2 of James Mansfield and Darian Lake. So Heidi and Jimbo are going to lip sync to Bad Reputation by Joan Jett. And Jimbo did a Jimbo job in this lip sync originally. So I feel like Heidi would most likely do a better job than her. And all of the votes for this episode were for Darian except for Darian's. So regardless of who wins, Darian is going to go home here. So Darian's going to be sent home in episode 4 again. We're going to move on to episode 5. So the question with episode 5 is, in this timeline where up to this point Heidi has 3 top 2 placements. She's been top 2 episodes 2, 3, and 4. In this timeline, does Heidi still quit? And I looked at interviews and different sources to see like what exactly was Heidi's reasoning for leaving the competition, and if the, actual kind of downplayment's not a word, but you know what I mean, of her talents and stuff not being in the top as often as I feel like rightfully should have been, if that played into her wanting to leave enough that in this scenario she would have stayed. And looking at everything, I still think in this scenario that about this time she would have wanted to fully quit. It seemed like a lot of her gripes and wanting to leave was like the shadiness and the cattiness that she felt that she was experiencing. And then when I say that she felt that she was experiencing, I'm not trying to invalidate her feelings. I'm just, from her perspective. Everything is from everyone's perspective, so I'm talking at it from her perspective, But the kind of conflict happening between Candy and Jimbo, and the additional situations with Kahana and the one with Alexis that came out of the Candy kind of, and Jimbo kind of spilling the beans situation. I think that Heidi still probably would have wanted to quit here. So Heidi is going to quit. There is going to be no elimination, and there is going to be no bottom 2. So I have kind of set a precedent with these videos. Well, I guess precedent's a strong word. Essentially, In the Canada versus the World video I did, which if I'll remember to put that in the iCard, I will, if you want to watch that. When Isis Couture quit before they did the critiques and everything, I made it so that there was no bottom two. It's just a top two lip sync for the win, and everybody has fun and everybody goes home happy. And there isn't that like threat of elimination after somebody quit. That just kind of feels slightly mean to me. So I'm doing that in this scenario too, because I feel like, again, I've kind of set a precedent for it, and I feel like it's the most fair way to do it. So I kept the same tops from last time. In this scenario, James does move up to a top two. Originally, Jimbo was just the sole winner of this challenge, which I completely agree with, and James and Alexis were high. But in the scenario where we got to move one up to the top two, I chose to move James up because she was kind of called out by whoever was on the other side of the sugar wall as being the best in the group. I fully forget at this moment. And so they would be the top two in this scenario, and they would lip sync for the win. Everybody else would be safe, even Kahana and Jessica, who were originally bottom two. They're going to be safe now because there is no bottom two. Anybody besides the bottom three is now just, or not the bottom three, the top three. Anybody besides the top three is now just safe. So these two are going to lip sync to Hallucinate by Dua Lipa, which I think would be a very fun lip sync. Not fun as in it would be fascinating. Not fun as in great, fun as in fascinating. And I mean, we saw originally Jimbo slipped at the very beginning of this lip sync, and I think James would win. I don't feel bad saying that. I think James would win this lip sync, and so James would, get some money. Everybody leaves happy this episode. We move on to the next episode. Everybody's, good now, I guess. Episode 6, we had the Rusical Challenge. So originally, Candy Muse won this challenge, and I said in my video review of this episode that I thought that LaLa Ri and Alexis Michelle did a better job than Candy in the challenge. But looking back at it and reconsidering it, I decided that Candy Muse was my second favorite, and that Alexis Michelle got bumped down to my third. So the top two of this episode are going to be the season 13 sisters of LaLa Ri and Candy Muse. Originally, again, Candy Muse won, and Lala was high in this challenge, while Alexis Michelle, who's now high, was just safe. I guess I kind of swapped Alexis Michelle and Jessica Wilde's placements. I didn't dislike Jessica's performance at all. I think everybody in this episode did a good job. It's just, honestly, kind of sadly a similar situation to, I guess, the commercial challenge where, if we're splitting hairs and trying to decide who's going to get that final top placement, for me it was Alexis over Jessica. I love you, Jessica, I swear. You'll see later how much I love Jessica. Anyway, the bottoms are going to stay the same. Originally, Jimbo just got a safe placement for this. She's going to get a low here. Some people say Jimbo should have been bottom two. I can see Jimbo being bottom two. That's not, I'm not entirely opposed to that idea. But I think looking at everything, I feel like Jimbo really only had slight choreo problems, and that wasn't even like she fucked up a move, it was that it didn't feel as tight as it should. While I do feel like there was some decent lip syncing and emoting issues between Kahana and James's performance, it's not decent. Decent seems too large, because again, nobody did a bad job at all. But I feel like those issues kind of weighed on my mind more than Jimbo's, where it was just like, Jimbo, again, she did it. It wasn't as solid. It wasn't as tight. Really, that was the issue with all of them, is that they all had slight issues where I feel like they should have gone tighter, more succinct, more punchy with it, more enunciated, more sticking the landing of the move. And Jimbo's felt the least egregious to me. So Jimbo is going to be low here, and the bottom two are going to be Kahana and James Mansfield. So LaLa Ri and Candy Muse are going to lip sync to I'm Not Perfect, But I'm Perfect for You by Grace Jones. Candy did a pretty good job in this lip sync originally, but I do think Lala would do better. I just see it for her. Really, because we obviously know Lala can lip sync the fucking house down. But would she do, this is an interesting vibe for a song, and Candy really hit it, and I feel like I see the universe where Lala hits it. I do. It really doesn't matter because everybody votes for James, if I'm remembering correctly. So it ultimately doesn't matter who particularly wins here. Yeah, I checked. Everybody voted for James except for James, obviously. I do think in my gut, in my heart, Lala wins this and James goes home. So James is going to be eliminated here again, and we're going to move on to episode 7. Now, here in episode 7, we have the Forensic Queens Challenge. This challenge was very fun, and this is the first challenge where we're going to have a difference in the elimination, as you can see. So, Lala was the standout of this challenge. I think everybody agrees with that. She won originally. She did amazing. There's really nothing else to say about Lala's performance. She truly killed that shit so hard. Now, Jessica Wilde, her ETB card monologue had me cackling in my bed at like 3 in the morning. What the fuck happened to my voice? At like 3 in the morning when this episode fucking dropped and I was watching it because I'm a fucking cretin who can't fucking wait till the fucking morning to watch a fucking episode of television. No, I had to watch it then. And this had me full on laughing my ass off. It was so good. Jessica, I mean, and everybody online is like, was talking, reposting the fucking section of Jessica's performance. She killed this shit so fucking hard to me. Now, originally, Jimbo also placed high. I gave her a safe because in a format with the top two, I tend to do top two, are there. So you got like 2 in the top, 2 in the safe, 2 in the bottom. That's what I tend to do for a six person round situation. Jimbo, I feel like, would have been the third for sure. But in this scenario, I feel like Lala and Jessica's performances were so good that I feel like the safe is appropriate. And originally, Candy was safe over Kahana, but I liked Kahana Montrese's performance more. It was really good, honestly. It was by far the best she's did in any of the acting comedy challenges throughout this season. Like, no, literally no chance. She did an amazing job with it. And I thought Candy's character was kind of, I don't want to say bland, but bland? Like, I was also kind of confusing. Like, looking at the sketch, it was like, she's not a detective. She says that, but then she's also in the detective, like she's in the room, like at the police station, like interviewing the suspect. So it's like, are you a detective or not? What are we doing? And she's also like sitting with like the attorney as well, Alexis Michelle. It's like, okay, what is this? I just feel like the character wasn't fully fleshed out, and I feel like everybody else's above hers characters, that was not correct grammar, but we'll live. I feel like everybody else above her just like did a better job and had more umph on the screen and were much more central characters to the whole thing. I feel like the whole sketch could have worked without Candy's character being there, which is not good. And also Alexis's. Well, maybe. Well, I feel like one of them had to exist. The other one probably didn't have to. You could have just like tied. You could have just had the attorney, or you could have just had like a detective. Um, but both of their characters just weren't up to the par of everybody else's in this challenge, so they're going to be the bottom 2 here. Now, because Kahana's not in the bottom, she cannot go home, so we're going to have our first different elimination of the season. Now we're going to have Lala Ree and Jessica Wilde lip-syncing to About Damn Time by Lizzo. I think they both do a good job. We did see Lala do this lip-sync, and she did a pretty damn good job with it originally. Do I think Jessica could do better? Maybe? It's definitely in the realm of possibility for sure. But I would bet my money more times that Lala would win this over Jessica. So she is going to get her second, win, top 2 and lip sync win in a row here. And looking at the votes, well, I guess originally they all voted for Kahana, except for Kahana, who voted for Alexis. But I do think when Candy is being put up against Alexis here, Lala would be more inclined to save her season 13 sister and Candy. And also, Lala tended to vote pretty fairly throughout the season, really kind of voting on track record basically every time except for Kasha. So I feel like since in this scenario Candy also has a better track record, Lala would be more inclined to save Candy than she would be to save Alexis. So Alexis Michelle is going to go home here, sadly, before she can get her challenge win of the season, which would have happened next episode if she was there, but she's not going to be. And we're going to move on to our top 5. Episode 8, we have the design challenge of using the past winners, outfit boxes situation. Now here we have Kahana Montrese over Alexis Michelle. In the ball challenge earlier this season, Kahana did, I would say, a perfectly safe job. Some people really liked her outfits on that challenge. I mean, a couple of them were good, but her design challenge look. Okay, that's actually kind of what I should say. The 2 outfits that she brought were pretty damn good. The actual outfit that she made was not great. It was okay. And I think based off of her outfit, I would say being okay, and looking at these contestants here and the outfits that they made in this challenge, I would say she for sure does a worse job than Jessica and Jimbo. And so she cannot be in the top 2. She's going to be either safe or bottom 2 here. The question is, would she do better than Candy here? And I don't know if she would do better than Candy. I mean, this was a really hard choice for me. This was one of the hardest choices for me about this whole thing is Kahana safe or is she in the bottom? I thought she would be in the bottom. Candy and Lala had very similar outfits here. I mean, they were both kind of, classic gowns with done hair and just kind of sleek and sexy a little bit and beautiful. They both gave similar vibes with their outfits here. And I think just looking at the construction of Kahana's outfit earlier in the season, I'm inclined to believe that she would do worse than Candy here. And honestly, probably Lala too. I say would she do worse than Candy because I liked Candy's outfit more. So it is based off of does she do better or worse than Candy. It doesn't really matter if she does the worst or the second worst. She's still on the bottom. But I think she would do the worst. But barely, just barely. That's the way I feel it. That's the way I see it. And also, frankly, even if she was safe for this challenge, the elimination order between who would get eliminated in this new scenario with Lala and Candy in the bottom, and then what would happen the episode later, it would just be flip-flopping who would get eliminated. So it really doesn't matter. But the bottom 2 in the scenario are going to be Lala and Kahana, and Candy is going to get moved up to the safes. The top 2 of this episode of Jessica Wilde and Jimbo are going to be lip-syncing to These Boots Are Made for Walkin' by Nancy Sinatra. And I think Jessica would win this for sure. I mean, I feel like when going over lip sync wins with lip syncs with Jimbo in them, it's gonna sound so shady. I don't mean it to be that shady, but it's just when you're going over these lip syncs, when putting somebody up against Jimbo to most songs and asking who would win, the answer is, well, no duh, that person. So I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Jimbo, I feel like still needs to find her niche with lip syncing. I'm not gonna critique her drag because I barely do drag. That feels like shady and overreaching of me. But I feel like this is the truth, and I don't feel like saying the truth of the situation is that mean, so I'm saying it. But I do think Jessica Wilde would do better here. In this scenario, well, Kahana was voted out the episode before this originally. So in this scenario, I do think Jessica would just vote out Kahana. Because at this point, with multiple bottoms for Kahana, and especially against Lala, who has won 2 episodes prior to this, it just makes sense. I would think that she would do that. I don't see why they would vote Lala here, and I see reasons why they would vote for Kahana. So Kahana would most likely go home, so she's going to go home here in 5th place. And we're going to move on to episode 9. So here in episode 9, we're having ourselves the roast. This is going to be the final competitive episode of the season. Well, I guess, we still have the talent show and the finale, but, the final one where somebody's, actually getting, eliminated, so to say. So our roast situation here, originally Jimbo won, which I completely agree with. She did an amazing job here. And everybody else was in the bottom because they do the, if you're not in the top, you're in the bottom situation. But obviously, since we're having a top two, there's going to be a top two and a bottom two. There's really no other way to do it with this kind of format. So looking at everybody else's roasts, I definitely think my favorite was Jessica Wilde. We did not see Lala do this challenge, and I think she could do a damn good job here. But I think really Jessica sold this for me. And I even like Candy did a great job here too. I feel like everybody that's here in this scenario would have done an amazing job in this challenge. But I think looking at all of them and, looking at Candy's and Jessica's performances, which we saw, and Lala's comedic performances in other areas on seasons of Drag Race, I would assume that Jessica would do the best here. So Jessica and Jimbo are going to be my top two again, second episode in a row, while our season 13 sisters of Lala and Candy are going to be the bottom two. Now the song is going to be Freakazoid, and Jimbo would win this lip sync. For sure. She has the gimmick, she's throwing the baloney, she's fun, she's having a good time. I don't think there's any way that Jimbo could lose this lip sync. This is a very odd song that Jimbo, I think, was genetically engineered in a lab to kill with a character, and she absolutely did. So, we gotta give her kudos to her, and she's gonna get the win here. And looking at throughout the whole season, Jimbo and Candy did have an alliance throughout the season. They're, three-person with Heidi that existed. We even saw in the top three that Candy decided to save Jimbo. But would Jimbo save Candy? Because the rumors, the situation that was happening was Candy said, if Jimbo's in the bottom, we have to get rid of Jimbo. Now, did Candy actually follow through that on reality? No, she didn't. But in this scenario, we don't know that. Jimbo doesn't know what Candy would do. That's just what Jimbo's heard. So you can't really fault her for not being well, would Candy send me home? And also looking at the votes throughout the whole season, every single time that Jimbo voted, literally every time, Jimbo voted for the contestant who had the worst track record. Well, technically, except for once. Lala and Candy, that vote for, the design challenge, the final five one. Lala technically had a better track record up to that point, but it was I think it was, or actually might have been tied. They might have been tied at that point. Or Lala was up by 1 point, truly so similar. And so I do think, based off of the fact that in this scenario here, their track records aren't that similar. Lala has 3 wins, 2 of those lip sync wins. This is her second time in the bottom. Also has multiple highs throughout the season as well. Whereas Candy has some highs, second bottom 2, same as Lala, but only 1 top 2 placement. I think Jimbo would probably play fair here and vote for Candy. I think she would. I really do, and that would be a moment, a shocking little situation to cap off the final elimination, being Candy Muse, who was kind of, along with Jimbo, really expected to be 2 of the people that surged to the finale in this season. I think that'd be a very interesting moment to have seen. And also kind of talking about what we talked about earlier with the, relationships and the alliances that we had on the season, the one between Candy and Jimbo. I think in this scenario, what the storyline changes would have been on this season is that we would have had, kind of the domination of Heidi that would have been cut in the middle of the season, which would have, I think, kind of been interesting. Because, I think that is something very intriguing. Having, a front runner being cut halfway through because they just bombed something and they can't recover. In this situation, obviously, Heidi doesn't bomb it. She decides to quit. But I do think there are some setups of a season where having kind of the playing field almost reset halfway through can kind of be interesting, I mean, with Ben de la Creme, for instance, she was so clearly the winner that it really, kind of shook the season to its core, and the final episode seemed a little bit aimless in comparison to the rest. But I think, at this point in time here, Jimbo would have had 2 top 2s. Lala would have been not at 2 top 2s. Well, Lala and Jessica would have been 1 top 2 each. Also would have been high ones. I feel like there would still, even though Heidi would have been the front runner and it would have been shocking, there would still be people right behind her who would still feel worthy to like continue and get wins, the Jimbos, the Lalas, the Jessicas of the world. It would have felt and made sense. So I feel like that, even though it would have been obviously still sad to see Heidi go, it would have felt better because she would have gotten the attention that she deserved for her challenge performances. And it would have kind of almost given the season a bit of a reset, which I think would have been interesting. And also, I really feel like in this scenario, we get to see the rises of Lala and Jessica, who do both so good on the season and are able to make the finale, and we kind of get redemption arcs for them. These two contestants who, like Jessica, for instance, was really a front runner on season 2. It was actually an example I should have thought of earlier, but kind of got cut off because she fucked up the lip sync on her original season. And I feel like it would have almost been a similar situation to that, where it's like, oh my god, this girl went home. Who is winning? We still have people who are doing good, like James on season 2, and I think Raven had just won her first challenge at that point. We still have people that are like winning challenges and could be absolutely worthy winners, but one of the frontrunners was just axed. So what's happening? I feel like it's almost similar to that in this scenario. But I do, again, feel like we get the rises of Lala and Jessica after, in different situations, feeling like they needed redemptions from their seasons. I do feel like the storyline for Candy slightly dampens itself because Candy doesn't make the finale in this scenario. I wish there was a feasible way to have this as the top 4. That would be fun, in my opinion, but based off of the season length and what you can do, it just doesn't, it would feel too like I'm trying to get Candy to be in the top 4 if I did it a different way than this. So sadly, Candy is not going to make it, and that I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that would be slightly a bad thing for the season, but it could be interesting, because Candy still does well. She still proves herself, so it feels slightly bad, but it doesn't feel as bad to me as Jessica being eliminated in 3rd originally when it happened on the actual season. It would feel less bad than that to me, at least, where it's like, okay, this girl's really excelled and now she's being cut off when she rightfully should be in the finale. I feel like, pedantic, semantic. So we are going to move on to our finale with our top 3 being Jimbo, Lala, and Jessica. But first, we have our talent show episode. Now, Jessica was here and Lala were here also. They're both not going to be here because, they're in the finale, so they can't compete for this kind of extra win in this situation. And Candy gets slotted in here. And I also just realized at this point that I have not mentioned the Fame Games. I haven't. I have not mentioned the Fame Games once. And that really, I feel like, epitomizes its impact on the season of like the Fame Games were just not a thing that I thought of a lot, and they really tried to hype it up, and it was just, it was there. It was certainly there. It certainly happened. I'm glad that Lala won it, but it certainly happened. In this scenario, would the Fame Games exist is a question that I do not have an answer to. I honestly don't care. I don't care that much. I want them, obviously I want them all to have a platform with which to show their looks off, and I feel like they could have just done that and showed them off in Untucked and not had the Fame Games, and I'd be like, hell yeah. I mean, I like people getting money as well, but like, it really just, it kind of meant nothing to me. I guess the Fame Games do exist in this scenario, we'll say, but they're not gonna get extra times voting. I feel like that's weird to me. Like, if it's like, you can't hold, like, it's you decide, but this person gets 3 times the amount of votes. That, I don't like that. I don't like it, because like, you already know, like, there's a good chance that they're going to win, and it's also kind of shitty for the person who gets the advantages there, I feel like, because regardless of if they did a great job or not, if you have a multiplier on your votes, it's still going to be like, well, they won because of the multiplier. Like, you're not going to know who actually got the most votes. And so people can theorize all they want, and your kind of win gets dampened because there is a chance that you weren't actually the favorite, which, is kind of shitty for them. I don't like it. So I guess this would just be like a win for like glory in this situation, and like a cash prize. I feel like that's what this scenario would be for me, this talent show. I do think it was interesting, allowing everybody to still show their talent, and also giving the eliminated contestants like another just like last minute chance to like scoop up some cash before the finale. I thought it was okay. Um, Now, originally James and Lala were the top two. Lala's not here, so she can't be in the top two. And James, I took out of the top two. I think in this situation, she was my third favorite. Moving Candy down to Lala. Candy and Lala had pretty similar performances. I mean, they were both, bitch tracks made in part by Ocean Kelly. Like, so, like, I mean, Candy did a great job here for sure. Looking at the performances multiple times, I liked Kasha's more. I thought the concept was really interesting. I liked the juxtaposition between like the hard kind of rock situation of it and also like the story time and like the calmness. And the message I thought was great. I really enjoyed it. Kasha killed this for me. So Candy Muse and Mrs. Kasha Davis are gonna be the top two here in this scenario. They're gonna be lip syncing to "Rain on Me" by Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande. Holy shit, I cannot think of her name for a second. I really couldn't. Holy shit. My brain fully said the name Alexis. I was like, her name's not Alexis. Why did I do that? Oh my god. Fucking Arianators, is that what they're called? They're gonna fucking come for me. No. But Candy and Kasha are gonna lip sync to the song. And I think in this scenario, regardless of how people do, you kind of just gotta give them both to win to give them the money. I feel like that's really the fair way to go about it. It would be honestly kind of unsatisfying if like just Candy won and then you're like, okay, well, Kasha won but got nothing, when the whole point is to like uplift these eliminated queens. So they're both gonna get the win here regardless of their performances, in my opinion. And we're gonna move on to the finale. Now, in this finale, we are going to have the individual performances that were made for them, and then we're going to have our final lip sync, pretty standard, I'd say, finale situation. What would Jessica and Lala's performances be? I have no clue. I feel like Lala's would definitely, like, give bitch track, for sure, whatever it ends up being. I would see that for her. Jessica, I'm not sure. I think it would be, like, I don't know, I feel like I want to see Jessica somewhere in the middle, where it'd be almost like, it would be kind of camp, it'd be kind of bitch track, it would be somewhere in the intersection of that, wherever that may lie. But I do think that they would all do a pretty good job in these performances. And then they would do their final lip sync to "Do You Wanna Funk," which Jimbo did originally and did a pretty solid job at. I mean, it's my favorite Jimbo lip sync, I would say. In terms of like actual performing abilities, it's for sure my favorite. I'd say Freakazoid is, I would say, a bit more fun, but in terms of giving an actual performance, giving, a vibe, dancing, I feel like Jimbo did a better, I guess a more technically better job in this lip sync than she did in the other one. So she would do a pretty good job here, and I do think Lala would kill this, and I think Jessica would also kill this. I think all three of them would do a pretty damn good job in this lip sync. So now, who in this scenario wins? Based off a track record, I don't think Lala can win. She has a pretty decently worse track record than Jimbo and Jessica do. I believe at this point she's 3 top 2s and then 2 bottom 2s, whereas both Jimbo and Jessica have no bottom 2s. Jimbo has 5 wins and Jessica has 4 wins. And I don't know why I said wins. When I just said top 2s. They're top 2 win, placements. Jimbo has 5, Jessica has 4. We'll just call it that. And so I feel like reasonably Jimbo or Jessica could either win this season. It really is just up to interpretation. They both did very similar, good jobs here. But personally, for me, who I really gravitated to towards this season, who I think really showed themselves and proved why they deserved to be here and excelled in the season, was Jessica. Jessica had so many great moments in this season, and in this scenario, she has a better track record than Jimbo. Even though Jimbo has another win over her, Jessica doesn't have a placement below safe at all, whilst Jimbo has a low. and Jessica, I believe, has more highs than her as well. It's a barely better track record. I think it's literally by 1 point, maybe 2 points. And so there is some, like, you could debate, like, well, Jessica would have been in the bottom for Snatch Game, but she wasn't because of the way that I kind of just have decided to do the episodes where people quit. So she would have a worse track record. But then there are 2 episodes in which I feel like I could have very reasonably given Jessica a top placement, moved her up a placement, which would counteract that bottom 2 that she might have potentially had. So I really feel like it's very up to your own interpretation of who you think did a better job throughout the season in this scenario, whether you think that Jimbo or Jessica should have won. It's very subjective, but I would want to give it to Jessica. I would. In this scenario, we would have a reunion after the whole season has happened, but we're not going to really talk about it because it's a reunion and we don't really talk about reunions that much on this channel, so we're just going to move on to the track records. Okay, Jessica does have more high placements, but it's literally 1, so it really doesn't matter that much. But as you can see, Jessica does have 1 point better than Jimbo does. And I should mention, the way that I count these as, placements and scores, I use the PPE score system when I talk about Drag Race, where being eliminated is worth 0 points, bottom 2 is 1 point, low is 2, safe is 3, high is 4, and a win is 5. Because we have top 2s here, I count top 2s as 4.5 personally. 4.5 or 5 I feel like would be the most fair way to go about them. I personally do them as a 4.5. And then, just averaging them per episode, as with most track record systems regarding Drag Race. And so, yeah, as you can see, Jessica in this scenario would have done better than Jimbo. They both did more good enough. That's a shitty sentence, but you know what I mean. They both did better enough than Lala Ree that I feel like Lala probably wouldn't have, deserved the win personally, but, we fucking love Lala Ree in this household. And yeah, those are all the track records. You can peruse, pause the video if you want to. Oh, and also I should mention, the talent show win and safe placements do not count. They do not add or mean anything for the track records. And also they don't mean anything for the contestants. As far as the track records are concerned, that episode is just skipped. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you wish. Leave your thoughts, feelings, and opinions down below. As always, I will leave my Twitter handle down below if you want to go follow me on there. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, take care. Bye-bye.